Hello friends and welcome. Today I want to talk about the new Immortal Matchmaking system that I was open to. I think there's some good stuff, but these are my experiences and there's some like negative things that I think need to be adjusted before, I don't know, the system continues on, or I don't know if this is experimental and it's supposed to make its way to other brackets, but if that's the case, there's definitely some things that need some work. Some from the Valve side, but also, players need to get used to the system, so I'm going to talk about both from my experience. From the Valve side first, party queue needs to stay together. I feel like, first of all, there's a big integrity issue. So, for example, I've seen cases, two people playing together. If you play together, great, you're party queued, you try hard, awesome. If you get split up because you have no control of this, if people pick you on opposite teams, I'm on my Smurf, perhaps. Bro, I don't care. I'll feed you down this lane. Like, I don't care about this MMR. It's just my alternate account. So, like, you go here, I'll go here, and I'll just feed you. I mean, that sucks, right? It can happen in a regular game, sure, but the odds of it that you end up in the same game as your friend, if you're both solo queue and you happen to get together, great, split up, you do the smurfing thing. But now you can party queue and guarantee that either situation's pretty good for you. It's like really easy to get boosted right now, where you like play with this smurf, win, or they feed you. And I mean, that sucks. So I think party queues need to be stuck together, because the other side of it, for the players who just want to play together, I want to play with the boys, why are we split up? It doesn't make sense. So make the parties the captains. If there's going to be two parties in a game, make them the captains. Just adjust the picks, so if you have like a party of three and you're only supposed to be the first pick, whatever. The other guy picks like 3 or 4 heroes or 3 or 4 players in a row, and like whatever. You're still happy. You got your boys, right? So I think this would incentivize party queuing, first of all, right? Like, we should play with people we like, and then you can kind of like pick the rest you need for your team. Like, hey, we can flex these 4 roles, so it makes sense for that group with the most communication flexibility to then pick the other players to fit in what is needed. It doesn't really make any sense at all to me to split up parties, and sometimes you have like 3 parties in a game, 2 ended up together, 1 got split up. Like, it's whack. So make the parties stay together as the captains, or just make them stay together so you can kind of see who is queued together. Like, I don't know, highlight yellow round, 2 for 1 deal or something. So if you pick them, that's your double pick, that's your triple pick, whatever. And the other team like then picks all the rest of the players or something. Now there might be some issues here with like making sure you get the right amount of parties so that you don't end up with like team of 6 somehow, right? But just make the parties wait longer. I think I speak for everyone without any amount of research, but for anyone party queuing who just wants to play with their friends, they don't mind waiting a little longer to get a game they get to play together, instead of like getting split up, getting into like possibly some like grief situations, right? Like, I'll wait a few minutes more to play with the gang. So I think that's a good way, like either limit it to 1 party on each team, make them the captains, make them stay clumped, something like that. I think it's a lot better to encourage team play. Another thing that would help encourage team play, in my opinion, is to redistribute the time of this drafting phase. So right now there's 1 minute of reserve time and 5 seconds per player pick, and then you go straight into the bans, which is like 10 seconds, and then you have to pick your first heroes within 20 seconds, or people are going to start losing gold. And the issue here is that we have to figure out our roles twice. So like the first time, the captain has to look at everyone, like figure out who they want, and we can't see what the captain's roles are, so like we're left in the dark a bit of like who's going where, what's happening, and then you get like into the lobby, your new 5 players, and it's like, well, I had 3 roles queued. Am I actually off lane? Am I support? Like, what's happening? And so, like, I don't even know if I need to first phase pick supports, because I don't know if I'm support. What if I first phase a support, and it's like, wait, I don't play that support, but, like, we already have 2 support players. Now what? Like, it's really a lot to sort out in a short amount of time. And I'd rather have more time after that draft. Like, take away, who needs a minute to pick players? Make it like 10 seconds for both sides to look at all the players, give them 20 seconds of reserve time each, and then the 5 seconds per pick. Like, that's fine. If you want to keep it the same, whatever, I don't care. But give us like 30 seconds to 1 minute after the team is formed to sort out amongst ourselves. I'm going off lane, he's going carry. Like, what are we doing? And we can then maybe even think of a draft. Like, I want to play Medusa. Can we get a Coddle? Can we get an Io? I want to play Alchemist. Can we get any like stacking heroes that have a like really easy time at that? Hey, I want to go fast push lineup. I want to go really late. Like, we could actually talk about that stuff and come up with some plans. And in Immortal, right? Obviously, there's going to be games where it doesn't work, but like at this level, there's more people who understand the meta, more people who have bigger hero pools to actually be able to pick like synergies and counter picks. So I would like more time in that sense there, and I think that does a lot for game quality and encouraging coordination, communication, good drafts, right now, I keep getting drafts where it's like, we had 2 carry picks, and now, like, oh, thanks for flexing at least to another lane, but I still have a drow off lane now, and that's like a 40-minute loss because the draft was so bad, right? That to me is the bigger time waste. So like an extra 30 seconds to a minute to try to like minimize that with like quick comms right there, I think that's the way to go to encourage better like Immortal gameplay. The avoid feature is now obsolete for Immortals as well, and I think that's some conflicting issues there. You could approach it several ways. So like one, it's a paid service through Dota Plus, so the fact that we just lose it kind of sucks. And by kind of sucks, I mean like, you know, questionable, very sus. Now, if the service became free and we don't get it in Immortal, like that's fine. But since it's part of a paid service, it's kind of weird to lose it. But it also sucks just from a gameplay perspective, because if there's someone who hates your guts for whatever reason, someone who's toxic and you don't want them on your team, you just have no control of it anymore, and they can be in your games. And it kind of sucks. It leads to like blackmail situations, which is like the thumbnail of my, you know, the clickbait here, which is that I had a game where, you know, we load up and then someone in the draft pool immediately says like, hey, if the blue player on Radiant drafts me, I'm gonna feed. And that puts you like in a weird moral situation if you're like the dire side team, right? Because on one hand, strategically, like, yeah, let that guy go through last pick so he ends up on the enemy team, and they're gonna grief on that side and we're gonna get a free win, you know? Like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. But sometimes you want a good game of Dota, and like, okay, so maybe I should take that guy so we can play, and like, it can be a good game. But like, I don't know, this guy's a blackmailer, so like, do I want him on my team? And if matchmaking puts you in a game and like, you know, you have no control over it, and like, oh, okay, this guy's griefing, that sucks, right? But it feels like the system put you there, so like, it's not really my fault. But now I've got like this moral dilemma on me if I'm the dire side. It's like, I grief the enemy team by not picking this guy, or like maybe I grief myself by picking this guy, but also maybe there's a better chance of a game, right? Like, that's in a really weird spot for us. And so obviously in that game, we let him go to the other side, and he went Veno jungle, and I had to play carry that game, and we still won. It was easy. So like, should we have that kind of power? Should that situation exist? I don't know. So the avoid feature, I think, maybe can be reworked a little bit if you want to keep this Immortal drafting, like maybe for just like 10 games, right? You avoid someone, 10 games, they cannot be in your game at all, on my team or on the enemy team. They cannot be in there. Now, the issue with that is that as too many avoids come out, it may become an issue where, you know, I'm avoided so much that I can't get in any games. So that's where we add a time limit. And like, say like 1 week, 2 weeks, if you can't play like 10 games in that time because you're so avoided, okay, maybe after 2 weeks of punishment, we release you into the wild, we see how you do, and if you keep getting avoided, you know, this time limit, this penalty is going up. So now it's like 20 games, it's like a month of time, something like that, you know? And that way I think we can still avoid certain like griefers. They can be punished for their behavior, for not like playing the game with integrity and like honestly, like, you know, for the love of the game, damn it. You know, if they're going to be like awful people, then I don't really want them in my game. So like, I think there's a benefit to an avoid feature that punishes those kind of players. Or maybe just reporting system like becomes more like heavy-handed a little bit experimentally. Like, okay, you can't avoid these players, but they get reported a lot, so, you know, we're just gonna like stick them in low prio, something like that. Then that's fine too. But right now, it feels really weird to be able to identify griefers in your game, and you just have to see like, okay, he's on my team. Like, I literally have to pick the griefer. Like, it's my stage. There's 3 griefers left. Like, I gotta pick one of them. Like, that's strange, I feel. So I think the avoid system had a lot of merits, and the fact that it's completely gone is sad. Let's move into the meta of drafting players, because a couple different strategies have come up, which I think are kind of interesting, right? I don't know how good or bad these are necessarily, but one you've heard is like just pick the low MMR players in the game. So you don't even care about the roles at all. You just pick the lowest, and then you're like 500 MMR behind the other team or something. It sounds bad, right? Like, aren't you gonna lose? Yeah, probably. But if you lose, you only lose like 10 MMR. And so you lose like 3 games like that, you minus 30. You win 1 game, and you gain like 50 MMR because you were behind. And so like, in the end, it works out. It's a little strange, though, in my opinion, to incentivize people to pick very uneven games, especially when it's like all up to the captain and all the players in the pool have no control of it. Like, I wanted an even game, but here we are with a low MR team. We get bashed for like 30 minutes, and that kind of sucks. Another is to pick the limited roles. So you get into the game, and in the past, you got about 3 cores and 2 supports on each team through the ranked roles. Now, there could be 1 support player amongst the 9 other core players, and whoever's drafting first pick that support player. because you're still going to have too many core players on your team, but the enemy team is going to have 5 core players or some shit. And I've seen this happen. I've also seen the reverse, too many support players. I've had to play more like carry than I've ever had to in the last couple years because of this change where we just have too many support players and I'm willing to flex it. And on one hand, it's kind of nice because when you have multiple support players and you're like, okay, guys, I'll bite the bullet, I'll do my best, they don't flame you because they know they're also shit at carry. So it's like the least stressful way to practice carry in a ranked game. But at the same time, it's not really what I wanted to do. I wanted to play like support or whatever role I wanted to play, you know? Another thing is to pick a mix. So like some people pick multiple roles and you're like, oh, okay, that guy will help me flex in the draft. But then there's some people who only show one role. Like I'm only a carry player. That guy's probably really good at carry compared to the guy who's at the same MMR but shows like 3 different roles. So you pick all these people who only play the single roles. Then you get into an issue though where the flex guy, like I wasn't really flex, I just wanted to be picked. And now I'm actually just going to pick carry, right? So there's still some issues with that. Then you can also try to pick the non-tilters. So anyone with like PMA in their name, nah, not on my team. Chill mode, nah. One or AFK, pass, right? I don't want them on my team, but then ultimately you got to kind of get to the end and you're like, that kind of sucks. Oh, actually, this just gave me a new idea. What if we bring more than 10 people into a lobby? You know, we bring like 15 players into the draft, and we know both teams pick the ones you want. You 5 others back into the pool, go get drafted again. Now this could drastically increase queue times, but that might actually make it better to like pick the people you want on your team and pick a proper composition. Ooh, that's a good idea on the fly. That really might have issues with draft time or queue time, but I'm kind of up to try it. I mean, we're already trying a new system. Let's keep it going. Now the other thing is to pick language based, and this is a weird moral line as well for me. In theory, it's good because, like, you know, Dota's a very communication game, so like, hey, we all speak English, they all speak Spanish, or, you know, whatever region you are, there's a split in like every region, right? Like that kind of works. I think it's also weird to put that in the players' hands, though, you know, because we already have like racism issues in Dota, as like all video games do, and it's not good. Like, just flame people for being bad Dota players. You don't have to get into like, oh, of course you're from this country, of course you're garbage. Like, no way. There's good Dota players everywhere, guys. No need for that. Just he's bad at carry. That's the most insulting thing you can say to a carry player. Not calling out his race, not calling out his gender, or anything like that. He's a bad carry player. That cuts deep to a Dota 2 player. That's the most offensive thing you can say. So I don't really like that in these drafts we could get to a part it's like, hey, speak English or I'm not picking you, right? Like, that's really a gray line, I feel like, for this drafting, and it's like very possible to happen. And I've seen it kind of happen a bit, like not that direct, but I've seen people talk and then they get picked first because they're like, oh, this guy, like, he speaks my language, whatever, you know? So I think it's strange. Like, when the system just puts you in one or the other, or like the system is supposed to have language settings and splits you, like, that's one thing. But for us to now be like, I only pick my people, like, whoa, like, I'm just here to play Dota. So I don't know if I really need that in the whole drafting system. Again, something very hard to control, I think, so I don't really know if there's a way around it. But that's just kind of like, you know, kind of like an iffy thing I have with this new system. That's all I got. I'm sure Valve has more data, and I don't really know their plans for this. This isn't really me trying to like bash them or anything. But I just want to talk about some of this since maybe there's going to be a patch coming up, so maybe they can adjust it a little bit, either this next one or in the future. But also I didn't want to do Dota stuff because the patch could come out and change it, so I thought we'd do this. It'd be straightforward and easy. So thank you for watching. If you've played any of this Immortal drafting, let me know your experiences with it. And if you don't play in this, would you want something like this? I'd love to hear it. Thanks. I'll see you in another video. Bye.